Why did you do it, Mason? Why?
Do you remember when Call of Duty looked like this? Do you remember when Call of Duty sounded like this? Do you remember when Call of Duty wasn't afraid to get under your skin? I want to share with you all one of my most vivid childhood gaming memories. I was about 10 years old, staying up one night far past any reasonable hour. It was a cold and windy night, which I hated because I used to hear voices in the wind calling out to me. So I decided I needed something to distract myself from the eldritch horrors trying to seduce me outside. But I was already tired of the 4 games I had already played a dozen times over. I needed something new to really distract me. I had recently borrowed my buddy's copy of the new COD game that had just released last year. I loved Modern Warfare, so naturally, I thought this game was going to be pretty cool. I put the disc in and boot up the game. And, maybe I would have been better off with whatever skinwalker was out there trying to diddle me, because I could have never prepared myself for what would greet me upon booting the game. Why does nearly every game franchise I love start off looking and feeling like this? But eventually, after a couple years of mainstream popularity, pop culture evangelizing, and a ludicrous amount of money, end up looking like this.
Bang, 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 bang. Playtime is over when Nikki drops in.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Call of Duty is the gaming franchise I think of often when I'm lamenting this phenomenon. There are many factors at play, many of which I could give 2 shits about, but feel free to talk about them in the comments. The element I care about that is sorely missing from Call of Duty for the past decade now is horror. If war is hell, and hell is the epitome of absolute horror, then war is horror. I just made this quote up, but it's true though. Call of Duty uses 3 types of horror: the horror of war, psychological horror, and supernatural horror. World at War's campaign firmly plants itself within the first kind, while leaning on the second. The Pacific part of the campaign plays its horror pretty straight, sticking to a traditionally dark depiction of the horrors of war. The brutality. The animosity. The desperation. But the European theater half of the campaign adds in psychological horror, which for me elevates it to a whole nother level. Everyone remembers Vendetta from the World at War campaign. And for good reason. How could you forget this? The big theme in this half of the campaign is revenge. We start the story a bit later than most revenge plots, after the catalyst has already taken place. The massacre at Stalingrad. One of the deadliest, if not the deadliest, battles in human history, let alone one set in such an urban environment with so many civilians. Over 1 million Soviet casualties. Roughly 40,000 civilians died in a week of aerial bombing. The city's population was reduced to just 75,000 survivors from nearly 500,000 pre-war residents. How do you depict that to a fucking gamer crunching on Cool Ranch Doritos on his summer break? This is how.
Shh. I need your help. Do what I say, and we can avenge this massacre.
When I was in school, I couldn't care less about history. This made me care. I was willing to bleed for Mother Russia after that opening. Those Nazi bastards had to pay. And this vendetta you've now been adopted into is reflected in how this whole side of the campaign sounds and looks. Most of the campaign is almost entirely in grayscale. The only color that really pops is the red of blood, which also happens to be the most prominent colors in the flags of the two factions at war here. And of course, the yellow and orange of blazing fire. Revenge manifest. It's like a black and white film of the era come to life, highlighting the colors that truly mattered the most in this conflict: blood, carnage, and death. In my opinion, Vendetta carries the heart and the soul of this entire game. And I think the devs thought so too, because the mission starts with the music from the main menu. And what a hell of a track to start off a mission with. One of my favorite movies, Children of Men, has this operatic motif that plays throughout its runtime during some of its key emotional moments. Now, without spoiling too much, you deserve to see this movie unspoiled. This motif represents humanity's hope. At least, to me it does. And the elements that make humanity worth having hope in. By the end of the movie, it gives me a melancholic, but ultimately encouraging feeling in its beauty, despite the bleakness surrounding it. It creates dissonance in how I feel. This operatic motif that pops up in World at War is the exact opposite. Not in the sense that it's entirely dreadful, but more in the sense that to me it represents the elements of humanity that makes you lose hope in our collective existence, but delivered through a beautiful voice, creating a new type of dissonance altogether. In Children of Men, the voice is one of human love and compassion that pushes through the horrors of the world to reveal its perseverance. In World at War, it's the same voice crying out in pain and anguish, like a child crying in the rain. The child is inherently precious and beautiful, but what is happening to it is far from that. Or you can take a much darker interpretation once you understand what the child is actually crying out. These lyrics remind me of a nursery rhyme. This one might be based on an actual German folk tune for children, although I couldn't find whether it was parodying a specific one that exists. But either way, it's a very common trick horror creators use when making horror tracks revolving around a specific culture. You take a piece of music that is often used in a cultural setting, then distort it, whether that be in pitch, tempo, adding dissonant sounds, stuff like that. And more times than not, this is lazily done and it kind of sucks to be honest, but here it's done really well. The way the singer keeps repeating good soldier, and egging them on to go and die. It sounds like psychological programming.
Чего ты там пиздишь, чего?
DI, your government has abandoned you. They have ordered you to die, DI. Do not trust them. Your rich leaders grow richer while you're dying in the swamp, DI.
It's how you would address a dog or someone you have control over, which is obviously meant to be sarcastic when addressing German soldiers. And it even sounds like the voice is coming through some type of radio or speaker, like it's being used as psychological warfare. You can interpret this song in so many different ways that connect really well to different aspects of the war. I've heard people say it's the angel of death beckoning all soldiers from every side to embrace her in this fruitless conflict. Or it's the ghost of a child haunting the soldier who killed him. All in all, could only really say definitively that this track is truly haunting. It still disturbs me as an adult, let alone when I was like 8 under the covers of my shitty little bed. The music of World at War characterizes the horror of the war in a very interesting way. Operatic tragedy, like a mother crying out in anguish over her son enlisted in the war. Ghostly voices peering out from dissonant soundscapes. Harsh industrial noise of what sounds like metal screaming out in agony, like in the beginning of Vendetta. It's a mechanically horror soundtrack at times, almost like pretty much horror stingers. But instead of a jump scare or creepy imagery to accompany the stinger, it's just showing you the brutality of war. That is the scary thing. You really don't need anything else.
Did you see him?
It's straight up psychological horror. And I hope this is clear to most of you watching, but just so we're on the same page, horror isn't just spooky shit. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins. Horror is interested in what's beneath all that spooky shit. Fear of the past, fear of death, the fear of little green guys running around, running amok. Horror is a psychological state of mind that the genre tries to capture, and that psychological state of mind definitely extends to war. I don't remember where I read this comment from, but I remember it saying something along the lines of, World at War is a horror game, because the monsters look like you. Yep, puts it pretty damn well. This half of the campaign is not only interested in showing you the material horrors of war, but it's equally interested in showing the horrors which lie within those caught up in its tempest, the psychology of war. And psychological horror has always been central to war, not just how we depict it in art. Just look at all the infamous noises that came out of World War II. When I think of World War II, I think of the soundscapes. The thundering of bomber planes in the hundreds overhead a densely packed metropolis. Shrill bomb sirens echoing throughout the bedrooms of families. The Jericho trumpets of the Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers that sounded like a creature screaming, coming down to destroy you. It's scary shit, man. They specifically designed the Jericho trumpets to scare the crap out of its victims, even at the expense of the plane's optimal performance. Even the pilots of the dive bombers hated that shit because it was so ear-piercingly loud, which then led to their replacement with the ever-infamous whistling bombs. It's honestly crazy how much sound played a role in the horrors of this war in particular. I don't think I've seen sound play such a pivotal role in war till, well, today. The new official PTSD sound effect is no longer the air raid siren. It has become the sound of a bee. Every poor kid who's going to be fortunate enough to come out of the Ukraine-Russian war alive is going to have panic attacks at the family picnic because some bastard bee flies next to their ear and reminds them of the drone that blew their buddies' heads off. Fuck drones, man. Like, imagine if COD treated the horrors of modern war with the same reverence as World at War. The sounds of drones, AI, the way war is circulated on social media, it's a genuine nightmare. I don't know why they chose to depict drones in a sci-fi action movie aesthetic when COD went through its futuristic phase. It's a complete waste of material and quite frankly, bizarre. There's so much untapped potential when it comes to depicting the horrific realities of drone and AI warfare. The Ukraine war has provided a litany of examples, and I'm sure our regularly scheduled Middle East Electric Boogaloo is going to give us more. I've noticed amongst the COD community, at least the part of the community I can tolerate a conversation with, accept World at War as a pseudo-horror game, but they seem to shoot the idea down when it comes to talking about some of the other games. And I think that's reflected in just how many videos are focused on World at War compared to the horror of the other games, although that has been changing recently, which I'm happy to see. But there's plenty of horror to find in the other games. Let's start with Black Ops. Now, if World at War leaned heavily on the horror of war while dipping into psychological horror, Black Ops goes full San Jacob's Ladder Apocalypse Now type of shit, which I remember loving as a kid. The interrogation room from the main menu is the best main menu design I've ever seen before, and since this game is released. First off, the visual design is impeccable. And you know, I'm just now realizing it's probably subconsciously inspired me in my art style quite a bit with the way I love using TVs in this manner, but it really works great here with the real historical footage creating an uncanny contrast. I honestly love when mediums like animation or video games cleverly use real footage to mess with you. It adds grit and makes the stakes feel real and grounded. You're also being watched the entire time by these shadowy, demonic-looking figures behind an observation deck looking straight out of 1984. They become a lot less intimidating once you discover it's just Hudson's bald-ass cantaloupe head, but still. And dude, when I found out you could hit the bumpers and wrangle yourself out of the chair and move around, I might as well have taken a diuretic with the amount of urine that soiled my poor childhood bed that night. It took me so off guard because I'd never seen a main menu just turn into gameplay before. And especially not unexpected horror gameplay. And you know my punk little baby ass thought that demonic figure was going to find me snooping around and send me straight to baby hell or whatever. We all kind of take this stuff for granted now because we played these games so much. It's become aesthetically and artistically normalized in our heads. But it was the most unique, creative, and immersive opening to a COD game up to that point. And that amplified the horror excellently. And we're just in the main menu, man.
We're losing him. Do it again. We have no choice.
Warning. Breach detected on level 3. Initiate security.
Something that also shows up in the main menu that will play a large part in the entire game are, of course, the numbers.
21, 10, 16, 23, 4, 22, 21, 4, 0, 14.
This highlights one of the strongest aspects of horror in Black Ops, carried over from World at War, the sound design. That rhythmic, monotone female voice from the number station is such a good horror motif to highlight what Mason experienced in Vorkuta and continues to endure in his psychosis. Number stations have always creeped me out, and a lot of people seem to share that fear with me. Just look at the extent to which people obsess over mysterious number stations, like the Linkshire Poacher and the Swedish Rhapsody. How many conspiracy theories and creepypastas used to surround them? They're just numbers. But the presentation does most of the heavy lifting when it comes to their horror. It just sounds creepy because it's distorted, dissonant, and uncanny. When we were young, me and my best friend would open up YouTube on my PS3 and see how long we could watch scary YouTube videos before we get freaked out. I remember the ones that would actually get to me would be the ones that used audio from these number stations, or Revolution 9 by the Beatles. The repetitive monotone voice sounds like it's in a trance. The numbers are presented with enough significance, you know they have meaning. And because the sound design is so creepy, we assume the meaning is dark and sinister. In the case of the Ascension Numbers broadcast, it actually is quite sinister. Every aspect of the design having to do with Mason's MK Ultra programming is so sick. The distorted screaming, All the fucked up sounds of the broadcast.
7, 21, 6,
Keep hearing the fucking numbers!
The flashes of Mason's memories being tortured.
The subject has been successfully implanted with the knowledge to translate the number sequence.
Vorkuta! You don't know what we did to you.
It's psychological horror mixed with psychedelic imagery and aesthetics, which I think perfectly captures the torture, the drugging, and manipulation Mason was subjected to. This is truly the most schizophrenic Call of Duty, and I love it for that.
Mason! Mason! I only got a couple seconds to tell you this, man, before that bald clown Hudson cuts me off. Mason, that chair you're sitting in, it's bad for your back, man. Take it from me, Mason. I spend so much time editing these blasted videos for you wonderful folks at home that my back is as crooked as a 3-letter government agency. You know what I'm talking about, right, Mason? This was me about a day ago, contemplating my taste in seating arrangements, whilst ignoring the fatal lumbago that was steadily taking over my mortal coil. And just when I thought I was at my rope's end, my hero appeared.
Be not afraid, Rammy boy. I am the C7 Max ergonomic chair from FlexiSpot. Just sit in my 0.2-inch latex seat cushion with premium memory foam, suitable for 12-hour seating comfortability. Go ahead, Rammy, sit and enjoy my footrest and recline function. Doesn't that feel relaxing? I also feature a, oh, he fell asleep. Rammy, wake up. Rammy boy. Wake up! I haven't told you about my 5D armrest, silly. Look at how easy it is to adjust. Perfect for all your home office needs. My ergonomic design is different from traditional chairs that only support the lumbar region. By focusing on sacrum support, I automatically support both your precious lumbar and sacrum, making me much more ergonomic. Type away at your video scripts. Maybe do some gaming. You'll only ever need me, Rammy boy. No more iron chair of doom and despair.
The C7 Max has a 30-day return policy for a risk-free trial and a 10-year warranty with direct replacement for damaged parts. Follow the link in the description and use my code C750 to get $50 off your C7 Max chair today. And say, be gone, lumbago, be gone with you. Order today. All right, Mason, I'll be back with more product placements later. Hang in there, buddy. And remember, Dragovich, Steiner, Kravchenko, all must die.
Speaking of schizophrenia, Reznov steals the entire show in this game. His character is the heart of the game, and is the perfect way to continue the themes and story from World at War. The Russian flashback where Dmitri dies is straight up a short horror movie. The framing, the pacing, and execution felt like the brainchild of a horror connoisseur. It honestly disturbed me on a visceral level as a kid. Seeing the previous game's protagonist die in such a brutal and horrific way, Dmitri deserved a dignified death. Reznov deserved to be welcomed back to his motherland, but instead rots away in Vorkuta. That was until he sacrificed his life for revenge on those who did this to him. After that Vorkuta mission, Reznov becomes nothing more than a vengeful ghost haunting Mason, tormenting him until he carried out his vendetta.
Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner. These men must die.
A vendetta Reznov adopted Mason into. Very similar to how he did with Dmitri, baptized in the coals of vengeance to become his killing machine.
But he told me what they did. What kind of men they were. Why they all must die.
That's some gothic horror shit right there. It's honestly a really cool play on the vengeful spirit trope, giving it a more literal angle with the MK Ultra-esque brainwashing that is causing Mason to hallucinate Reznov.
My name is Victor. Mason, no! Step 8, Reznov! Freedom! For you, Mason! Not for me!
Hey, but if themes and tropes, imagery, and sound design isn't enough to sell you in the idea that Black Ops uses a lot of horror, at one point it even mechanically flirts with being a horror game in the mission you go into the Viet Cong tunnels. It's literally a textbook haunted house style horror level. But instead of skeletons popping out at you and going, it's a Viet Cong waiting for the opportunity to slit your throat. World at War and Black Ops are both haunting in their own ways. But at the same time, there was always a disconnect for me because they were set in the past. Mind you, that didn't make them any less scary for me as a kid. If anything, it kind of made them a little more scary at times. But I still had a disconnect with their settings. It was like I was watching an old haunted horror movie, or the really bad acid trip of America's most sane CIA agent. The Ranger missions in Modern Warfare 2 changed that for all my fellow young Americans who played these games as kids.
I'm looking at fighter jets over I-95! How the hell did they get through?
Russia invades America in this game. And I don't remember what the lore justification was for Putin deciding to invade the suburbs of Nova, but it definitely messed with me as a kid. I remember when playing through these missions, seeing Russian paratroopers coming down in the hundreds with an orange apocalyptic sky as a backdrop, how they would use people's homes as crow's nests, raiding through their fridges, killing anyone they found. It gave that feeling that you could be in the middle of this right now, in your little cargo shorts with some bullies in each hand, trying to watch SpongeBob and shit.
Like, turn the TV on! Turn the TV on! They hit the Burger King! They hit the fucking Burger King!
Turn on the TV, it doesn't matter what channel. That cold open with that dreaded EAS tone for the mission of their own accord is pure Kino. Der Toten. These missions lean heavily on analog horror. Not the lazy, shitty kind that has been popularized by certain creators who like to infantilize the genre, but closer to that classic Dawn of the Dead type analog horror. There's been some videos covering the horror and the radio transmissions from different squads throughout DC trying to evacuate civilians. I don't want to spend too much time going over every detail of these. I highly recommend you watch the deep dive videos people have already done on them, but I want to share this one example that really stuck with me.
Your target is a column of 6 enemy T-72s moving from east to west along that road. The convention center is about halfway between our OP and the oval track. Be advised, major civvies are packed into that convention center, awaiting evac. War Horse has contact on all. We are passing IP Cadillac, rolling into heading 090. Roger that, bring her in. War Horse off safe, guns, guns, guns. Apex inbound. Brake right, brake right. Ejecting. I can't see it, I can't see it. Overlord, this is Stalker 2. War Horse 5-1, flight of 2 A-10s is down. I see only one shoot deploying. BDA is 80/15. Convention center is taking heat rounds from T-72s. It doesn't look good from where we are. How copy, over? Stalker 2, this is Overlord. Solid copy on all. We do not have any other close air support in the area at this time. Displaced to a more secure location south of K Street. And await further instructions. Out. Mystic 2-1! CENTCOM just gave the order to abandon all evac sites to the east of the Iconic! Get your ass out of there! Gator 2-6! Gator 2-5! Be advised, we are pulling out of DC! DC 2-4 taking 90% losses! Our position is untenable! We are out of here! I repeat, we're getting up and dodge!
These details in the background might seem insignificant on their own, but they completely sell the atmosphere that the US is falling. The enemies are in the castle walls. The boats have all been burned. Nobody is coming to save you. Rome is burning. Remember, at the end of the day, games are basically smoke and mirrors, like an amusement park dark ride. This shit isn't actually happening. These civilians don't exist. They aren't even rendered. The walls are made out of cardboard. But the magic in game design is to sell the illusion that it's there, to make the created world feel much deeper than it really is. And by God, do these small details sell it. Does anybody else just stop and take it all in during some of these missions? Especially at this little pathway? I don't know, man. There's something about the beauty of Virginia suburbs with the backdrop of America burning that makes me feel compelled to sit a while and smell the ashes. These missions have an atmosphere on par with World at War. I love how through each mission, the situation just keeps getting worse and worse. The skyboxes in these missions sell the atmosphere more than people realize. I love skyboxes, both in games and in real life. They can radically change the atmosphere, especially when they change throughout the course of a story. Bloodborne is a great example. And these ranger missions do something very similar. As the situation gets more dire, the orange hue of the sky grows darker from the fires engulfing the capital. These ranger missions start off at 5:45 p.m. and end at around 7:30 p.m. And these missions were literally and metaphorically seeing the sunsetting of America. The world as you know it is ending. It's apocalyptic. Feels like it possibly can't get any worse. That is until the coming of the second son. You know shit is bad when the fall of your country starts resembling Armageddon. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love when stories continue to escalate and escalate. Wind the string and tension tighter and tighter. And just when you think it can't get any worse, they throw a giant comically sized wrench at the situation. But what separates a good and bad execution of this storytelling device is whether we actually feel the consequences of the wrench. In this mission, we certainly do. Shit's falling out of the sky. All hell breaks loose in the streets of a barely breathing Washington, D.C. And then, silence.
Oh man, it's quiet. Here's your red dot working, mine's out. Mine's down too. This is weird, bro.
Your reticles aren't working anymore. Comms are down. You can't tell friend from foe at first glance. You are in the dark, both figuratively and literally. Pure Kino, bro. This is how you do it. World at War is like the haunted song of a long dead ghost. These moments in Modern Warfare 2 are horrors knocking on our front door. That is until it goes back to being an action thriller blockbuster. Which is fine. These action blockbuster parts in the campaign are iconic and very cool, but they do feel like separate visions in some ways. These ranger missions feel a lot like the ethos of World at War, while these other missions in the same game do not. They feel closer to what Call of Duty would later be mocked for. And, you know, it worked back then, because the game had a balance. But the ethos of World at War completely started to disappear at a certain point, and horror became a distant memory in the franchise's past. I had hoped the series would reconnect with some of its horror when I saw the Clean House mission from Modern Warfare, the reboot, I think. But back to Clean House. That mission was great, firmly planted in the horrors of war category that I mentioned earlier, but they pretty much peaked there and it's been nothing but downhill since. I saw in Black Ops 6 they tried going back to horror, but honestly guys, this is what I would expect an AI to come up with if I prompted it to make Call of Duty into a horror game. This is a very generic presentation and understanding of horror. Like, this is how the Frontier mod for Fallout New Vegas thought good horror was. Let me know if any of you get that reference. You can do so much with the source material of war. Look at Warfare, the 2025 movie by Alex Garland, soon to be Elden Ring guy. Imagine a mission with the pacing and the horror of what happens in this movie. Not to spoil anything, but man, that would feel like a return to that World at War Black Ops soul. Or even something like 1917. This movie is a perfect example of what kinds of stories games are really good at telling with the source material. This movie has a very video gamey plot by virtue of its single take approach. People call it a gimmick, but to me, a gimmick is inherently surface level, only doing it for the sake of doing it. I don't think that's the case in this movie. The one-take gimmick shapes the plot, pacing, and horror the movie shows. It puts you in the shoes of the characters more than a conventional movie would. It's incredibly immersive, the one thing games specialize so well at. There's only one real cut in the movie, but it's done in such an immersive way that it justifies breaking the one-shot presentation. And everything that comes after this part of the movie, not to spoil anything, is one of my favorite sequences in fictional war media. If we had a COD game depicting World War I that's anywhere close to the second half of this movie, I would be content. I think COD needs another grunt perspective game, where you're just another infantryman on a battlefield. Most or all of them involve playing as a special operator, but like in 1917, you can present so much of the horrors of war from the grunt perspective. Obviously, there's a place for both perspectives in these stories, but I think the latter has been over-prioritized. But what has certainly been under-prioritized in this franchise is its horror roots.
Hey, don't you even think of wrapping up this video without bringing up the zombies mode?
Oh shit, you're right. My bad. So yeah, how exactly did we go from this to this? This shit looks like something I'd put on for my nephew so he falls into a comatose state and I can sleep in peace. World at War and Black Ops Zombies had aura, man.
Jeez, they're all over the place! Come on, give them hell! Take their heads off! Stay down! Jeez, they're right behind you!
These classic maps were so versatile because with friends, the aura was simply badass. Running around with your homies leading trains to the sound of 115, but when you played by yourself, it was a different story. Especially the World at War maps. Knocked is legitimately a proper horror level when you play it by yourself. Now I'm sure all of you remember that moment the campaign ends with an ominous tone and sends your ass straight to that subversive Zombies title card. But this little shit-panting moment captures the soul of early Zombies. Campy, yeah, but subversively creepy. If you look at this map, like many of us did as kids, with a fresh set of eyes, you'll notice the little details that separates this map from the rest. In typical World at War fashion, the sound department was on a sick one. I don't think there's another zombie map with a soundscape as creepy as Knocked. Verrückt is the only one that I think can match it. Even the noises the zombies make are completely unique to this map, and honestly less obnoxious than the later zombie effects they would use. This map is essentially if Night of the Living Dead was made in 1945 and was set in the aftermath of Germany's defeat. That movie is campy by today's standard, but during its time it was shocking and horrifying. I think that's exactly the experience the World at War devs wanted to replicate with Knocked. I don't think it's a coincidence that the first three zombie maps are largely considered to be the scariest. I think Dare Rise is where zombies really started leaning into that campy science fiction angle the series would later be full of. I personally don't really find any of the Black Ops zombie maps to be very scary for this exact reason. Although, maybe I'm in the minority on this. If you do and find these maps scary, let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear your perspective. Zombies didn't inspire me to make this video, but I figure I'd better mention it before a bunch of you start screaming in the comments and my poor lamb friend here has to deal with it.
Thank you.
No problem, buddy. And thank you, dear viewer, for watching. I'll catch you later.